Mayday, mayday. The dollar is dropping faster than Rui Hachimura from this Anthony Edwards crossover.
Wow.
Well, if you go down, you can't break your ankle. But otherwise, he would have. Gabe Vincent saved a poster.
The dollar is dropping so fast that currency risk management firms like Argentix are being margin called. The dollar-yen carry trade is unwinding faster than Beyblades, and stocks are on the receiving end. This move in markets is insane, and people are caught off guard right now.
It's a neutral reserve asset. It isn't a tech stock. It isn't a bank stock. And as the factors that I see that we talked about earlier developing, where I think a moment is coming if they don't really sort of do something big in terms of devaluation, which, oh, by the way, will be really good for Bitcoin, in my opinion. If they don't do that pretty quickly to get that the GDP down, like a moment is coming of like sheer terror. Like people are gonna be like, oh, like, holy cow. Like, so capital's leaving, rates have stopped going down, inflation's picking up because, oh, by the way, the tariffs are, they're not being absorbed by China. China's telling American retailers to, bugger off. And so those are, oh my God, where's that money gonna go?
Oh, I think you know what the obvious answer is to where money will flow into. But the first and obvious one is gold, which just crossed 3,500 for the first time ever. And this is an amazing indicator for Bitcoin. Gold sniffs debasement, Bitcoin capitalizes on it. Today, we're going to walk through what's happening in the macro landscape and what it means for Bitcoin, and why ultimately Bitcoin will become a $20 trillion asset. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. People were shocked yesterday to see gold up over 3% and Bitcoin back above 88K. People in markets are worried right now. The capital rotation indicator just flashed from the first time since 1930, 1972, 2002, and now, which after this indicator flashed at these levels, stocks went down 50 to 80% over the next 2 years and hard money assets skyrocketed. There's been some amazing analysis done on gold recently because it's shining right now. And some of it is from James Checkmatey, a Bitcoin analyst. And he points out what we know to be true visually. Gold sniffs out debasement first. Whether it's COVID, whether it's a regime change, or whether it's a bank collapse, which is going to cause money printing, like the SVB collapse in 2023. And this is why gold is up 120% since January of 2020. Right now, gold is sniffing a U.S. recession.
The entire treasury market will turn seller in a U.S. recession. You will have, people can't fathom the trillions of net effective deficits, right? U.S. deficits will be 13 to 20% of GDP. That'll be more than big enough to drive yields up in a recession. However, you're going to have banks selling alongside that. You're going to have foreigners selling alongside that. You're going to have mom and pop selling alongside that. And there's only one buyer. And that's where you get to this very binary outcome of collapse or Fed print it.
There's only two options: collapse or the Fed printing. Break the system or break the currency. And this is really important out there for Bitcoin. When you look at a chart analyzing gold and Bitcoin and their correlation to money printing or the M2 money global supply, you recognize that gold has a pretty strong correlation, although it's not too much different than stocks or the S&P 500 in general. What do you notice about Bitcoin? Well, that's a power curve. When money is printed, Bitcoin goes absolutely exponential. After all of the money was injected in the system in 2020, Bitcoin outperformed gold by 450% in 2021. After all of the money was injected into the system in 2023, after the SVB bank collapse, well, Bitcoin outperformed gold by 780%. And quite simply, it's because Bitcoin is a more scarce asset. The annual supply of gold versus Bitcoin is continuing to diverge. As Bitcoin becomes more scarce, the stock-to-flow ratio is already lower than gold, and it will continue to shrink as every halving occurs. And this is why Saylor talks about the digital gold rush between now and 2034.
0.99 is January of the year 2035, the point at which 99% of the Bitcoin supply has been mined. The asset becomes effectively capped for all practical purposes because the last 1% comes out over 100 years. 0.99 between now and then you've got 10 years for the digital gold rush. You should get your Bitcoin before there's no more Bitcoin for you.
The world is moving from analog money to digital money.
Capital is going to flow from the 20th century to the 21st century. It's going to flow from physical to digital. it's going to flow from currency-based derivatives to a digital commodity derivative. So it's already happening. It's unstoppable. It's literally like, for me to say Bitcoin's going to demonetize gold understates it. Yeah, it's going to demonetize gold. Then it's going to demonetize the real estate that's 10x more than gold. Then it's going to demonetize every long-term store of value. So what you have is a situation like the Europeans show up and they give like some Dutch guilders or some pieces of paper or some glass beads or seashells or stone coins to people using a more primitive form of money.
People are trading less valuable assets for more valuable assets over a longer term horizon when they have a longer term investing approach. Bitcoin is demonetizing gold and then real estate and then every other capital asset in the world. And it might seem pretty boring right now, but sound money assets have a tendency to do nothing for a long time and reprice very rapidly and suddenly. Or in Bitcoin, we say gradually, then suddenly. And that's why you never sell your Bitcoin. One of the ways that you can unlock liquidity in your Bitcoin without selling your Bitcoin is by working with the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, which is Ledn. Since 2018, they've issued over $9 billion worth of loans and have over 1,000 five-star customer reviews. They were the first digital asset lender to do a digital proof of reserves, and they've never lost a single cent or sat of customer money. Rates start at just 12.4%. But for people who come through the Simply channels, well, you get 0.25% off your first loan. If you want $5,000 in your local currency, you post $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. The loan process usually takes less than 24 hours. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply to get started today. That's learn.ledn.io/simply. The first asset that was monetized by the world because it was scarce, it was finite, you could verify it, and the supply was limited and relatively fixed was gold. And one of the reasons that it was so valuable is that you could remove it and take self-custody of gold yourself. Well, you can do the same thing with Bitcoin. You have to remove Bitcoin from an exchange. Remove your private keys from third-party custodians like Coinbase. But a lot of people are lost on how to do that the right way. And that's where the Bitcoin way comes in. Members of their team will walk you through how do you take self-custody and have sovereignty over your Bitcoin and do it in a way that's private, secure, and confident. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their team by going to thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. That's thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. Gold has added $17 trillion in its market cap since 2016. But people also forget that it took 5,000 years for it to get to a $1 trillion market cap. Bitcoin has done that in 15 years. This is exponential growth in capital. Scott Besson taught a course on economic history at Yale for 5 years. And it's funny, he thinks one of the biggest crises in America right now is our lack of financial literacy.
Everyone should care about financial literacy, whether you are a student with a summer job or a part-time job during school, whether you're in college, whether you're starting your career, or whether you are at the end of your career. Making good financial choices creates economic security, and look, it's fun. You learn about the markets, you learn how to properly allocate resources, and there's a big payoff over the long term for something you can do early in your career.
We are not financially literate as a nation, and it's because we've enjoyed the privilege of having the global reserve currency and being the dominant force in the world geopolitically, economically, financially, and militarily for the past 50 years. So we've never had to learn about hard money the hard way. People still ask me all the time, why should I buy Bitcoin? But if you lived in another country, well, you wouldn't have many questions about why you would get out of the fiat currency, which is debasing, or the broken system and go into gold or Bitcoin.
Because I think if you go to the average, I don't know, emerging market participant who's, lived through a high inflation, like you say, hey, would you be interested in money that can't be confiscated? You can move anywhere globally and it hedges your, inflation. And they're like, yes, please. And twice on Sundays, right? And what I'm discussing here really, and this is blasphemous to say, we're talking about the United States of America heading towards an emerging market sudden stop crisis, right? Like that is capital leaving, rates up, inflation picking up.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. I've never lived through one, but my understanding and reading about them in emerging markets is like, yeah, you get your money out of dollars if you can. You get your money into gold if you can. You get your money into Bitcoin if you can. And I think that's kind of like the, sort of, I jokingly said this the other day to someone on X. So like over the last 20 or 25 or 30 years, like sort of, it's, a good way, a good theme or narrative to fade, to bet against and make money is the narrative of, well, it's different this time because we're America, so all the history won't matter. And then you're like, oh, wait.
It's not different this time. When the system collapses, the system does not care whether you're American, Brazilian, Venezuelan, Russian, or Roman. The system is going to collapse on itself, and you need a way out, an escape valve. You need a global asset that's neutral for everyone in the world. And the only asset that's been able to do that so far, that's digitally native and can't be co-opted, corrupted, or hidden in fake vaults like Fort Knox, is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is the winner. It's the orange dwarf. It's got the network effect, and it is the most powerful global capital asset and global property assets. Take every country in Africa. You think there's a country in Africa that can launch the next Bitcoin that won't collapse against Bitcoin? Now take every country in South America. Was Brazil going to be able to launch an asset that you would want to own more? No. Now take every country in Europe. The euro is the second largest currency and the best currency in the world other than the dollar. 99% of the demand for digital currency in Europe is for the dollar. Okay, so the Europeans can't even compete against the dollar. Will the Russians be able to launch something? No. The Chinese? No. Why? Nobody in China wants to own anything in China, Christine. How do I know that? Because there's a law, right? The Chinese make it illegal to move more than $50,000 of capital a year outside of China. If the Chinese drop the capital control, all of the capital in China would flow out of China. And so there will be geopolitical jostling, but Bitcoin is already the winner. It's reached escape velocity. And if the US government begins to acquire it aggressively, not only are they a beneficiary, but they will force every other country on earth to adopt Bitcoin as the global capital. In fact, what will really happen is the Japanese, the Canadians, the Mexicans, the Brazilians, all the Africans, all the Europeans will inevitably begin to convert their physical and financial capital into digital capital on the Bitcoin network.
This is the long-term game, and this is how it plays out. All countries, at some point or another, are going to begin to rush into Bitcoin. This is what ultimately makes it a $20 trillion or $200 trillion asset. Gold is showing you that there is going to be some positive actions in Bitcoin's price potentially here in the short term. But over the long term, history already tells us what's going to happen. Don't overcomplicate the trade. One of the ways that you can grow in your financial literacy is by coming down to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas on May 27th through May 29th with almost 20 to 30,000 other Bitcoiners from all across the world, including the Simply Bitcoin team. Go to b.tc/conference/2025 and use the promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off your ticket. Our team's excited to meet you there. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.